Randy Cosby. It's good having you here. Thanks for taking the time to visit with me today. And you are the co-founder of InfoWest. Right? And
one of the co-founders.
One of the co-founders. Now, InfoWest is a big name. So we're in St. George, Utah right now doing this interview. And InfoWest is a big name here in St. George. How long has the company been in existence?
We started in 1994.
Okay.
So a very long time.
Yeah, that's been a while now.
for
it's
the
so
internet.
funny thinking that that's a long time. Because it doesn't seem...
I know it doesn't, but I've got kids working for me that weren't born.
Yeah, is that crazy to think about?
Their parents weren't even married yet when we started, so yeah.
That is so funny to think about. So what was it, maybe tell me a little bit about, what was the genesis? Why did it start? Where did it come from?
You know, it came from a couple of different directions. A bunch of us were all at Dixie College at the time. A couple of them were working with a program they called the Center of Excellence. And the Center of Excellence worked with local companies that did technology. There was a 3D graphics program. There was some medical things like that. And they worked kind of, I guess you'd call it semi-internship, kind of a partnership with the college. And as they got working on those technologies, they kept running into this new internet thing and seeing how it worked. And they started thinking, you know, there might be a business here because these other companies were wanting help learning how to get on the internet. The college was just barely getting on the internet. I was working on the other end of campus in the business building, and I discovered the internet. I was a lab assistant, and I basically stumbled upon what was the internet and got playing around and got looking around. And I found that there was somebody else online at IBM. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. There's a guy there at IBM, and I could actually talk to him. Then I got a call from the computer center at the college saying, "What are you doing?" You know, "Oh, I'm just looking at the internet." "Are you supposed to be doing that?" "I don't know." "Okay, well, don't mess with anything. Don't break anything. Let me know if you have any problems." And they just let me go. But
that's great.
I got learning it. They were learning it. I ended up building a business connecting teachers onto the internet from their homes and instructors and things like that, or offices on campus. They ended up building a business for...
Wait, you're a student?
I'm a student.
Yeah,
we're all students.
And you built a business for teachers. Is this teachers at the college then?
Yeah, instructors at the college that wanted to get on the internet. Now, at the college had internet, they wanted to be able to access it from home. So I learned how to do that.
Okay.
Some of these other guys built some of the technologies and did the networking and things that needed to be done to have that happen. Eric Pedersen, Gary Covine were a couple professors at the college that kind of guided this. John Clemens from LearnKey kind of helped fund it and get it started. And so they had all the people do the business, do the marketing, and I was the guy who would go out and visit all the customers and get them hooked up. So we started literally with dial-up internet back in 1994.
Which is Windows 3.1 or something?
3.1.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, we had floppy disks, a stack of floppy disks that we loaded into their computers and made sure their modems worked, made sure their phone lines worked, and it exploded. It exploded. And
so this is the genesis of InfoWest then.
Right.
So, and the idea, it started with helping connect teachers to the internet.
Connect teachers to the internet, and then small businesses to
local businesses to the internet. And that grew into what you're doing
everybody
now.
on the internet. Yeah.
Which is, so maybe give an overview then what that, here we are 26, 27 years later, what did that grow into?
Sure, it's evolved from dial-up internet to DSL internet to cable internet. Now we're doing a lot of wireless and fiber. So with our wireless, we're able to get out into remote areas. We've got hundreds of customers in Pine Valley, for example. They can't get cable, they can't get DSL service, but we're able to service them. We're in town, we're in Cedar City, we're in Richfield, we're down in Overton, Nevada. So the wireless has really helped us spread our footprint out. We've got almost 20,000 people on this service right now.
On the wireless service?
On all of our services.
On all the services, but you've got massive wireless now. This is actually a great topic.
Yeah.
Because as you know, part of this discussion here is the idea that we're in a smaller community. Once again, we're in St. George, Utah. It's not a big metropolis.
Right.
And one of the unique things about being in a small community like this is you're actually surrounded by even smaller communities, and that's what you're talking about right now.
Sure.
Serving this. So I want to have a couple questions specifically about this then. When you started this business, is this, how do I put this? There are a lot of internet service providers around the country. I know when I was in Denver, we had Comcast and I can't remember who the others were.
They used to be the cable companies and the telephone companies.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So were you filling a space that didn't exist in this community, or were you ultimately competing with other bigger companies doing the same thing? Does that make sense,
Right.
what I'm asking?
For a very short time, we were unique. And
Okay.
then, since then, we've been competing.
Okay.
So we compete against the phone companies, we compete against the cable companies, we competed against America Online, and there's going to be new competition in the future, from Elon Musk and other places. So that's kind of how we've always grown up, competing against the big guys.
That's interesting. So then you had to, when you're serving these smaller communities, once again, this is a unique thing to a smaller market like this. Of course, so I'm from Denver.
Right.
Denver has smaller communities around, but the smaller communities around Denver are the size of our big community.
Right.
And so you're talking about something very, very different. And so you're creating something for a very unique need that exists in this area. Am I right about that?
Yes, but we're also competing right down in downtown St. George too. So we're depending on where we're at and what the service needs are, we can provide fiber internet services in the gigabit range. We can be wireless out in the middle of Beaver Dam, Arizona. It depends what the need is, but I think our success has been finding what those needs are that are not being met by our larger competitors that are not in this community, that are not necessarily invested and not local.
And I'm glad you said it, because that's where I was going with that.
Right.
It's when you have a unique thing like that, interestingly, when it's a homegrown company like that, which obviously it's grown way beyond considering like this homegrown, but I mean, it's
Right.
now a big organization. You understand the area. I mean, some of the people we've talked to in here, they have these big companies that move in,
Right.
yet they're able to compete with them because they understand the people and the area more than the big company does. And they're able to fill those needs
Right.
a little bit better because they kind of get it. And the people know they get it. So anyway, that's
And our job isn't to beat the big guys. It's to provide the need that they're not meeting.
that they're not meeting. Yeah.
For example, we had a guy this morning that called in, had a problem with his router. He needed to change his DNS settings, and he's 80 years old, and he has one good eye. What do you do with somebody like that? We go to his house, get on his computer, and we help him out and take care of him. That's the way we do business.
That's interesting. Because this theme has come up several times in here when we're talking about how do you succeed in an area like this. It's so much of it is your reputation, it's your customer, and your customer service is at the core of it.
That is our. I think overall, if we got rid of that, we wouldn't have a company. It's just technology, and our technology beating up on their technology, and it's a race to the bottom. But it's customer service is what we enjoy doing. But I think that's really been key to our success over time.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, over 85%, I believe, is what our latest numbers are referrals. Where people hear about InfoWest, where people learn about us. It's not Google, it's not the newspaper, it's not radio, it's word of mouth. So we work really hard to keep building that up.
Yeah, and that matters a great deal, not just, everywhere, but you get into, and maybe you can speak to this if it applies in your case, but a lot of people that I've spoken to in here, that is an issue even more so in a smaller community than it is in a big city, that reputation because of the
good or bad
communication.
Good
Exactly.
or bad. Some of a really small community, you get somebody that's had a bad service with us, we make mistakes. They hear about it, and their neighbors hear about it, and they question, okay, should I really go with you? Because I've heard this is what you guys have done, and we've got to clean up whatever messes we make, and we got to do it. We try to wow our customers. We try to go above and beyond, and that's our difference.
So yeah, that's awesome. It seems to be it's interesting. A technology company, because when you think about this, it seems like so much of technology, the intention or the what can be done with it is interestingly replacing humans, and yet it's the getting back to the human part that actually then differentiates the technology.
So far, yeah. Let's hope it keeps that way, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange irony how that all works. So some of the things that you have to deal with when you're in a smaller community, you have a smaller talent pool to draw from. How do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a struggle. I'll be honest with you. It really is, but it's also, I think, an opportunity. You have a small town. I don't know what the word of it's ethics. It's a work ethic that you can pull from that I don't think we would find the quality of the employees. For example, our tech support people, they're usually entry-level jobs. They're coming in, they're college students or just getting out of high school and just learning the ropes, but they know the technology really well. That pool, it turns over quite a bit, but we have some really good guys. They just like to work. They like to take care of their neighbors, and that's the kind of job they enjoy. They move on to bigger things sometimes. Sometimes they stay with us 25 years. We have some that are still here. I started off as tech support. That's where I am, and there are a few other employees who've been with us for a very long time. So yeah, it's a smaller pool, and it's becoming more difficult now. There's all kinds of dynamics we can talk about: wage growth, education in this area, what's being taught, what kind of skills people need coming out of school, and things like that. But it's a challenge, but I think there's also opportunities. I don't see it as anything that keeps us from being successful here.
Do you ever have to recruit outside of the community and move people here, or actually have people working outside the community?
We have not yet.
Really?
Not really.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Everybody's here?
Everybody's here, but one guy who used to live here, and he moved up north, and we liked him so much, he works from home. So, yeah.
That is actually pretty remarkable.
Yeah. So
I mean, because companies that I would think you'd be able to have everybody in one area still have people working.
Yeah, and we'll see where that goes another year from now. Things have changed in the last year. A lot of us are working remotely, and that's becomes an option. But so far, it's all been here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, So once again, you're able to bring for the talent. So you're bringing a lot of people from the school then?
The schools.
These are students that have been doing computer science, or what are the primary types of jobs that you have?
IT, people coming out of Southwest Tech or Dixie Tech that are learning IT. We've got some that are coming out of the colleges, SUU or Dixie State University. That's one type of job. We've got other levels, though. We've got people out working on towers. And those come from all over the place. We've got guys that are out of the Army. We've got guys who have done tower work in other areas. Some that's just their passion. They just like being outdoors. They like doing that kind of work, and they've got a head for it. We got people that install our internet service on the people's houses. We look for people who know how to do building, that understand how to build a house or where the studs are, things like that, have some good knowledge of building codes and things like that. So there's a kind of a diverse group. And then our high end are the guys that are running the network in the background. We call our IT guys and our network operations. They're usually going to have a college education, not just working through it. And this is a career that we hope they'll stay with for a while and they'll grow into. But we've had some of those too. It's been interesting. It's hard to see some of them go, but seeing where some of them end up. We've got a guy working for the Raiders now doing IT in Las Vegas. We've got a guy that's just retired after working for a little company called Uber. Another one that's done a bunch of graphics work for another company, for companies like Vivint and Ancestry.com up north. So there's some great talent coming out of this area. We can't always hold on to them, but it's been good working with them, and it's been good seeing them help develop our company and seeing them develop as people. And if this is a launching board for them, that's great. We like to see them successful.
So this may be a multifaceted question, but why St. George?
Oh, easy answer is this is where we started. This is our home. But we're growing from here. We've grown out to Cedar City, and we've now grown into Richfield. We've grown up into almost Manti area, down into Overton, Nevada.
Yeah, you're in another state, like you're saying there in Nevada now.
Yeah, we're in Nevada a little bit. It's just 45 minutes outside of Las Vegas, I believe. It's a small community there, but it's a very similar demographic down there to what we have here. Good quality work ethic, good. It's just a good neighborhood, good people looking out for each other, and good word of mouth, things like that.
I think, speaking of St. George specifically, I don't think a lot of people understand how close St. George is to Las Vegas. I mean, I was in Denver the last few days, and this came up a couple times. I mentioned St. George once, and I said, if you know where Las Vegas is, St. George is just kind of right down the street.
Yeah, Utah's mountains and the skiing. Well, no, it's not quite like that.
Right, exactly. I've had that conversation where I mentioned Utah, and they think, oh, cold, and they go, no. this is way different. This is on the other end of the state. You could throw a rock from here and hit Arizona.
Yeah.
We're right there on the border. But having that big city, at least in this case, having that right next door like that can help from a resource standpoint and being able to travel specifically. I know for me, just that airport, I use that a lot. You know, sometimes the St. George airport doesn't serve quite as much as I need to. I'm sure, and it's growing. Right. You know, it's expanding. And that's what I wanted to talk about here for a second. You know, we do have, we're a little bit limited on our ability. I mean, we have I-15 coming through the middle, which helps immensely, I think, everybody. But you don't have a big airport. You know, we don't have a railroad coming through here. Right. And so does that impact you? And if so, how?
No, but I have a parallel.
Okay.
If you think about the networks that our highways make, how you get in and out of here. Let's say I-15 is the only way in and out of here. The fiber optic networks that we connect to the rest of the internet were very much like that here. There was one road out of St. George when we started. Now we've worked with other partners and we've developed 2 and 3, and we've got I think we've got 6 different connections, different directions out of this area. So when you get a fiber cut, you know, which would be equivalent of having a crash in the gorge, blocking traffic, if we get a fiber cut in this area, we can route around that now. And that's developed over time. And that infrastructure, you don't see it happening, but there's work on that continuing to happen. And I've just heard of a project a couple weeks ago that it's going to be taking stuff up through LA and Vegas, through St. George, on up clear into Colorado.
Like fiber networks.
Fiber networks.
Okay.
So those things, there's a lot of investment going on in that over the last 20 years, and we've benefited from that. We're very well connected in St. George now. You don't see it, but it's like having an airport with international terminals here.
Interesting. Okay. That's an interesting parallel.
It makes it a good place to do business that people are just beginning to realize. We're very well connected.
Yeah, and interestingly, St. George is really exploding too from a population standpoint. I mean, it seems that for your company, the potential here grows simply because the population continues to expand.
That helps us a lot. It makes the job easier. That makes the runway slant upward. But there's still a lot of work. There's a lot of headwinds. There's a lot of competition, and there's a lot we have to do to continually improve our game. You know, we can't do the same. We can't have the same technology in 5 years, but by the same token, we can't be the same company in 5 years. We have to continue to improve.
It's interesting because you've actually done something that you found a need that existed in a small market. You started filling it before the competition moved in, and then some other competition moved in, and you've been able to grow and expand through all of it. It was just an interesting thing that I've noticed as I've had some of these conversations that it never occurred to me before, that there are small communities. I mean, St. George is one of them, but they're probably all over the country that have needs that aren't currently being filled. You know, I started thinking from an entrepreneurial standpoint. You find a small community, and there's probably, they don't have this, and they don't have this, and they don't have this, and they don't have this. And if you can go and move into that community, you can start building that thing and create that thing that doesn't exist there yet.
Sure.
And that's kind of your story in a way.
That is.
Well, except you were already here.
We were here, but you know, looking back with 25 plus years and saying, what did we just do? You know, it's been interesting. We've never built this company to just build it to grow it to sell it. And that's very much in our technology industry, that's how you do things.
That's the mindset.
And maybe we are dumb. Maybe we could all be retired by now. But I think that mindset comes from this area. I think that comes from seeing our pioneer heritage. They didn't build water canals for the next 5 years so they could sell them. They built it so this area can grow, and this area can develop. This area can be healthy hundreds of years later. And I think we've tried to do that with our company. We've never built with the eye to just grow it and explode it and move on. And I think that's helped us in that range. But I think that's, like you say, it can definitely, in other industries, if you find a need and you can see that it's going to improve a community, not just make a bunch of money real quick, sure, you can have a long-lasting, healthy business.
That's really interesting. Are you from here?
I'm originally from Southern California, but I moved here as a teenager, so pretty much.
So it's home that way.
I've got family that has been here my whole life,
Okay. It seems it's interesting you bring that up, because several times when I've had these conversations, well, we mentioned them earlier, design to print in here. You know, it's the same thing where they succeed here because they're passionate about being here. Right. You know, they want to see the place grow. And there's something to that in the success of a business where you have a mind towards helping the community as a whole and providing something. Of course, it's capitalist and You're making money and all that stuff's part of it, but you're looking going, I also have an interest in this place succeeding.
Sure.
And therefore, so you put in something into it, and you want to build something that serves the community.
I want my kids to move back here. They're starting to move away. You know, their opportunities are out of this area, but I want there to be opportunity here. I want this to be a quality place. And I think my partners and I, we're the same partners 5 years later. We've got a few others, but or 25 years later. Yeah. And we have the same mindset. We want this to be a better place.
And so, and that's a great thing to lead into this idea of what we have here already, because a lot of companies. So, me, for example, you know, we were here in this production studio. We were in Denver, moved down here about 2.5 years ago, and part of the reason we did it. This is funny because we were having this conversation before we started talking. I wanted to change my lifestyle. I wanted to get away from traffic. I got tired of just constantly just driving and getting stuck in traffic, and and I also got tired of being cold. And I had enough of snow. It's funny because I actually was in Denver a week and a half ago. I was supposed to fly back here, and then they had one of the biggest snowstorms they've had in decades, and I got stuck. And it was so funny sitting there like, this is exactly. And I actually wasn't able to fly out. Had to cancel my flight because all these things. Anyway, but there was something about I came here for a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it's an attractive thing. So you started here, and yet there are a lot of companies that are actually seriously looking at this place because, well, I mean, all the crazy things that would happen in the world. A lot of people are looking at smaller communities, and you think, okay, why St. George, for example? Why we have small communities broadly that people are thinking seriously about, moving out of these cities after the craziness we've watched over this last year, specifically as we're having this conversation. We're at the hopefully tail end of a pandemic.
I hope so.
But more specifically, St. George, there is a lifestyle here that's very attractive to people.
It is.
And so maybe you could speak to that. It's one of the things that makes this. The lifestyle is one of the things that attracts people to it, and maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Speaking from my family's experience, we're 35 years ago, it was, getting out of the rat race, but coming to a place where you felt safer, where you could be minutes away from getting away from it, whatever it is. I think there's a number of things I discover over time: the quality of life, the quality of people. I think the quality of people is a big deal. And the planning for the future, the building for the future, I think we've seen some of those dividends pay off. I mean, I was here when Tuacahn was first being built, for example, and seeing the tourism and the economic development that's come just out of that little place. Mm-hmm. It's that eye to the future. And I hope that's continuing. I hope that doesn't go away because we've got hundreds of years ahead of us. That will keep the quality here if we're continuing to look to those futures and look to those challenges, which don't have easy answers. Things like water, things like overcrowding, things like traffic that are going to become more of a challenge. I've seen some of the leaders here, and I look up to them, and I really respect them because they've had that kind of vision. And as long as we can keep that, I think this will continue to be an area where it's not just attractive to workers, but it's attractive to families and generations that want to stay here. And that's what we need to be thinking about, not just, okay, it's less bad than there. This needs to be a good place for generations, and that's what we want to see it happen.
Not just less bad, actually really attractive.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I'm so glad you did that because it's a perfect segue where I was going with this. St. George it seems to be really business friendly, Utah in general. And what could the state or even the county, city government be doing to help that move forward? I mean, you mentioned Tuacahn, for example, as something that is, they built this massive place up there for performers, and they have theater there all summer, and it attracts a lot of people. And the city's involvement in helping see some of these things grow in the area. What things perhaps we could talk about that could be done or are already being done to help with that growth?
Well, that's a big question. As we look at the national and the worldwide political climate, for example, we have polarization. And I think a lot of the success that we've seen here is because people have seen that polarization. We want to protect our liberties. We want to have people protected, for example. We want to have wilderness protected. We want to have the rights to build. We've found ways to come together on those things. Tuacahn's, again, a perfect example on that. As long as we can keep that in mind, that winning one side at all costs is never going to help this community as much as finding ways for both sides to win. The tortoise habitat, that was a very contentious issue in the past. Tuacahn was directly related to that. They found a win-win, and now we're kind of revisiting it, and we're kind of going back and forth on what's best on the new highway that wants to go through there. Water is going to be the same kind of thing. It's not going to win unless we find a way to take care of both the needs of the future as well as the needs of the present, the needs of those who want to protect A versus B. We can come together, and we've done it in the past, and that's through mutual respect, through people who are willing to put aside their feelings and really hear each other out. And I think that's going to make a big difference here to help this area continue to develop, and I hope it does.
That's such an important point, because one of the things that happens in a community like this, when you start talking about these smaller areas, I mean, and Tuacah's a perfect example of this, when you talk about this win-win, there is nobody that I know of in this whole area that wants to encroach or cause problems with the tortoise thing right outside of, I can't think of where, because I know there's part of the year you can't even go over in there because of they're protecting the tortoise habitat out there. And where on a broad scope you look at, once again, this hyper-polarized world that we live in right now, when you fine-tune it down to a community where you have a group of people all living together, it's weird, everybody's kind of on the same side with that, because you're invested in the place.
Sure. Nobody wants to see a bunch of used car lots in the Snow Canyon.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. The encroaching nature of capitalism is inhibited, strangely enough, by the very people that even want to support capitalism, because it's like, yes, but we also collectively, without government intervention in some ways, all of us are thinking, we want to take care of this beautiful place that we have.
Sure.
And that is part of that lifestyle too.
Right.
Where and you even spoke to this. I want this to be a place that my kids want to come back to.
Right.
And that is part of the beauty of a place like this, is that we have this unique unique environment.
Right.
This beautiful areas. Tuacahn moves into it. What is it? The bottom of it? Is it Padre Canyon?
Right.
Or is that what it's
called? I think
called?
they call it Padre Canyon there. Yeah.
It's right there at the bottom of it. They were able to put that there and still keep this massively beautiful canyon going up in there, and it kind of just flows nicely into it, and everything's so beautiful, and you have the landscape, and then you have the growth, and
it was a real struggle to put it there. They ran into turtles, literally ran into turtles.
Turtles,
and there was problems. But tortoises, I'm sorry. But
correct, yes.
Must be correct on that. But, that's, I don't know, we're kind of going a little bit off of talking about business, but I think it does. It's an analogy to running, I think, a successful business. It's looking at the long term, looking at the big picture, building a community, not just working in the community.
Right.
You're taking care of the community through what you're doing, rather than taking from the community to do what you're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's the future for InfoWest?
Oh boy, I wish you would have asked me a year ago, and I would have been completely wrong today. We've done a lot of growth over the last couple of years. We've had a couple of acquisitions. We've almost doubled the size of our company in the last 3 years. We are looking at new technologies, like I say all the time. There's some amazing things coming out in wireless that we're excited about, but we're also investing in fiber. There's a partner company of ours called Go Fiber. We're building fiber optic networks throughout town. We're going up into the Cedar City area. We're serving businesses, we're serving MDUs, things like that. So there's more of the technology is going to be ramping up. If you look at recently, the cell phone company spent over $80 billion just for the rights to use certain frequencies for wireless. There's big stuff coming. We're excited about that. We're also excited to be, well, I don't know if excited is the right word. The landscape's changing. Government is becoming more involved. The need to make sure everybody's got good, high-quality internet is being recognized, and there's money flowing into that. Whether we like it or not, we've got to deal with that landscape, and we've got to be able to learn how to work with that and to help further that mission. I mean, it's good for everybody to have good, high-quality internet, whether they're out in the boonies, whether they don't have the financial resources, and we're working on ways, both financially as well as technologically, to get out to those people.
It's becoming like heat and water, where you just kind of got to
we used to say it was a privilege, but it really isn't anymore.
So a couple other things then. You start talking about speaking of finances. How did you finance a startup business like this?
We've pulled a whole lot of shoestrings. we had a little bit of a start there at the college. We had LearnKey invest in some space that we were able to be in. It really reminds me of this space here. We were actually in a place that was a TV studio for a while, a recording studio, and worked on a back office there. But from there on out, it's mostly just been self-financed. We've grown slow. We've tried to pay for it ourselves. We've taken on some debt with these acquisitions, but we really are very debt adverse, and it's been a blessing to us for a long time because of that. But yeah, we try to pay it as we go.
That's pretty awesome. So with a multi-million-dollar company, how do you manage to keep that personal, I don't know, for lack of a better word, personal touch with the business? Because I've seen this happen over and over and over. Bigger the company gets, the more it loses touch with the individual.
It's a work in progress. It is, because we have grown so quickly, and we had a pandemic right in the middle of it. We brought on 40 employees, and I haven't spent a lot of time with a lot of them one-on-one, and I'd like to. But I think it comes down to us as the owners, as the founders, working on the business and trying to instill those values and making sure that's throughout the business, that we wow our customers, that if it costs a little bit extra to go out to somebody's house to take care of their internet because there's no way they're going to be able to do it themselves, that's what we do. Those kinds of things, it takes continual work to make sure that that's the attitude and that's the vision that other people have, and that those are the people that are coming into the company with those types of visions. So that, and then just continuing to work with the communities, learning how to find the needs, to partner, and to find those partners that work well with us. What's been interesting too in the history of our company is we work well with our competitors. And that's been something we've always tried to do. And it's tough sometimes because it's a cutthroat business sometimes. But in the end, it's always worked out. We've either ended up partnering on things or hitting different niches, and it works out well. So I think keeping those kinds of attitudes, finding ways that we can synergize with others has definitely been important for us.
So a couple other things, as a business owner, as somebody that founded a big company like this, what are the maybe lessons learned, pitfalls that you found over the years?
When you talk about lessons learned, it's usually you want to talk about the ones you're working the hardest on because you're struggling with. But I think one of the best pieces of advice I was given is when you build a business, not a practice. And at first I thought that meant, okay, nobody's going to buy you, and if you go away, the business goes away, and therefore the company's not worth a lot. But it's more than that. You've got to make a business that has all those values and all those things that you talk about that make you successful. That has to be a business. That can't just be a person. And it has to be able to work when you do step away. And it does have to be something that will grow on itself, that you can duplicate, that's systematized. I'm learning, and I'm learning the hard way a lot of times that has to happen. I like to get involved with the nuts and bolts. I jump in there and help with technical support. And sometimes I think maybe I'm wasting my time on that because there are people who can do it better. And there are people who I should be training to do that rather than going in there and doing it for them. So that's a struggle I have.
Interesting. I know for me over the years, learning how to just let go.
But don't just
let
hand
this
it over.
other person, give them trust them to be able to handle the thing. And yeah, but keep going. You said don't just give it over.
Yeah, you don't just give it to one person to say, okay, now you do all my jobs so I can go play with the toys that I'd like to play with. It has to be a business. You have to build a business. You have to keep the finances. You have to keep the records. You have to keep it healthy. You have to monitor things that need to be monitored and watch for those red flags and correct them as they go. It's a continual process.
So last thing, milestones. You look at the milestones over the years. What were those things?
Oh, there was the ones that stand out in my mind. I don't mean to be negative, but there are the times when we thought there's no way we're going to be able to keep going because look at all this competition. They're selling internet for nothing. It was free in a time, or there's all these big competitors moving in. And it's just realizing that each of those milestones, when America Online came out, when the phone company started competing against us, when the cable company competed with us, and now when Elon Musk is going to be competing with us, that we found ways to survive, and we will find ways to survive and to thrive because there's always an unmet need and there's always a better way to do something. And finding that challenge, that's been probably the most rewarding part of this career I've had so far. And I hope that the company continues to have long after I'm gone.
That's awesome. So people want to learn more about InfoWest. What's the process there?
Sure. Go to our website, InfoWest.com. We've got live chat on there, both from our customer service as well as technical support. If you've got technical questions about your current network, even if you're not with InfoWest, we'd be glad to give it our best shot. See what we're made of. We've got a Facebook page, Instagram, if that's what you're into as well.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to visit on this stuff.
This has been fun.
Fascinating.
Thank
stuff.
you.